meet you. Yes.
So we put the, great. Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to the August meeting of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Committee. Thank you for those of you who have turned out to be with us. We always value your inputs and thoughts. As you know, this is sort of a working meeting for us, but we always try to make sure we get the public and guests or visitors who come so their voice can be heard. So let me go to the next chart. And I think there's some folks joining us potentially online as well, Will, right? Is this being broadcast? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and we'll start with first things first. Do we have a motion to call the meeting to order?
I so move.
So move. Let's take a vote on that now. Evidently, I need to do that as well. So, everyone, does anyone not want to start the meeting? Okay, I think we can go forward. So the agenda we have, this is the agenda that you have in front of you. I made a couple changes since this was published publicly. We're fortunate Mayor Hardiman is here to share just a couple comments. I don't think we're going to have anything about the traffic safety study, so that's going to be a good perspective for us, but we don't have that ready yet. And the last thing I added was at the very end about future meeting dates. So, but all the other things are just per our agenda. So do we have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
And everyone for it? Okay, thank you. Next thing I want to do is review the minutes from the July 13th meeting. For those of you who don't have the paper copy or got this, we have those in front of us. It was a very, as always, a very lively meeting. We had some fun with recognizing our participation and particularly some of our helpers for the WAVE parade. Town manager talked about some of the initiatives going on. Sergeant Foley really gave us a great update, I thought, on the year-to-date kind of incidents we've had and the nature of those, so that was really informative. And the last thing we did was really and I was mentioning to a couple folks before, did some initial work on thinking about our future steps. So this is beyond, if you think about this summer season, we have a number of things still scheduled, but this is sort of thinking down the road, where do we want to go? Where do we want to be next year and how to continue the effort? So we began some efforts around that, and we appreciate everyone's input on that, and we're going to sort of build on that at the very end of today's meeting. So that's sort of our plan. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I move.
Thank you, Diane.
Second.
Thank you, Art. And a vote to do that? Unanimous? Okay, thank you. Okay, the safety contact I'd like to share, and this is, some of you probably heard me share this before, but I just had seen a number of folks, and it brought it back. So this is a personal experience for me. It was on December 31st of 2019. I was biking up near VFW. I had a helmet. And for some reason, I don't know whether I hit a sand patch when I was going around the speed bump or something. I don't know. I don't remember. I fell down. I had a helmet on. Ended up getting a pretty good cut of my eye. I had to go to the emergency room. You know, did the brain scan, X-rays, the whole thing. I was really very fortunate. To this day, I don't remember a thing about the incident. So that's sort of the head impact I had. And I've been in sports my whole life, and I've had some pretty good head collisions in basketball and football, but never did I not remember something, and to this day I don't. So what it just made me reflect on a little bit are just some reminders, right? Helmet usage. We see people all the time biking without helmets, some casually, you know, some it looks like just going for a coffee or down the street. But we don't know. The whole point is, it's like seatbelts, Sergeant, right? If we knew we were not going to be in an incident, obviously we would have seatbelts, right? All the time. But we don't know. And so that helmet is a little bit of protection. And it might have changed my life. I might not have been here, to be honest with you, if I didn't have that helmet on. The thing I didn't have were the two things below me. I didn't have my phone with me, and I didn't have any kind of identification. This was like a last-minute thing. We were having folks over. It was an unseasonably warm day. I went for a bike ride. And I didn't have a phone, and I didn't have any identification. Luckily, when I came to, my wife still says, I don't know how you did this. I remembered her phone number because people came to help me. And you know how you try to remember somebody's phone number that all you do is you push a button these days? And luckily, I was able to at least contact her. But those are things I always have my phone and always have some form of identification. So those are just a couple personal learnings, experiences I've had. So next, I'd like to formally welcome a new member of our team, Art Diver. Art's been an active participant in the audience, lived here for a number of years. But Art, I'd like you, if you would, just to introduce yourself. The council voted on his inclusion on the team last meeting. And so, Art, your stage, sir.
Okay.
And if you could just move that a little closer so everybody can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Art Diver. As Mickey mentioned, I've been living here full-time for the last couple of years. But prior to that, I've spent a lot of time in Bethany for the last probably 35 years. And I think this is a wonderful area. It's growing considerably. And I'm very impressed with the work that the team has done here to make Bethany a fun experience as well as a safe experience. I think that Bethany, especially some of these issues about, having the crosswalk identifications, having the paintings on the side of the shoulders that indicate which direction to go for biking and walking, I think have been very helpful. And I'm very impressed with the work that the team has done. So I'm very happy to be here and look forward to contributing to the team and their future success.
Great, Art. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to it. So I just wanted to, now this is the formal introduction, or the formal, when we add you to our chart, Art. You're on the chart now. So, but thank you. And we also, you see Sergeant Foley and Julia Maluska. They're such an avid and key members of our team that we consider them part of our team. That technically might not be the case because town employees, but we think of them as our heart and soul of our team, so they're on the team as well, full-time. So whether you know it or not. So, so again, thank you, Art. And again, thank you for everybody on the team. This is, I was describing to somebody this morning, this is such a fun group to be with. You work hard, we're passionate about what we're trying to do, and trying to make, as Art said in his introduction, just trying to make a difference. And we get so much great support from the entire staff of the town from every level. So we're very, very, very fortunate. Okay, so I'd like now to introduce, we're very fortunate to have with us our guest speaker from Sussex Cyclists, John Kirpjowick. John, did I get that anywhere close? Okay, close enough. So if you'll go to the front. John, I actually had the opportunity to meeting John at I always say Bike to Bay. It's not Bike to Bay, it's Bike to Beach to Bay or something? Ocean to Bay, yeah. I confuse it with the other one that comes. But we actually, he was with all his group, and I literally probably spent 10 minutes chatting with John right before, while he was trying to get his team organized. So he was like, will this tall, funny-looking guy please leave so I can, but it was really informative, and I thought it'd be a great ad, and Teresa Keel reached out to invite him formally. So John, if you would just give us your background, experience, perspective of your group, and that would be great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to point, Sussex Cyclists, this is our 20th anniversary of trying to promote, this is our motto, promote safe and enjoyable cycling in Lower Delaware. So there are two things we're working for: safe, that's first, and then enjoyable. We do what we can to promote safety. First of all, let me point out, we're a club that promotes rides, but we also do them as safe as possible, and we want people that are visiting the area to be as safe as possible when they're out on the roads. We work closely with DelDOT for a number of activities. Back up. During the summer, our club has rides practically every day of the week at different levels. And we have a website, sussexcyclist.org, and we invite anybody here that's interested, go to the website, take a look at our ride calendar. If you see something that interests you, come jump in the ride. We allow guests to join our rides. By the way, if you are a guest and do several rides, we will try to talk you into joining. And dues are minimal. They just simply pay for our operating expenses. We're 501c3. We've done a number of things over the years. A couple years ago, we had a project where we gave away 60 bicycles to middle school students who were identified by their schools as students who would bike to school but couldn't afford a bicycle. We worked with several bike shops to have good bicycles at minimum costs, and we picked up, along with Dogfish Head, which made a grant for this, doing that, or giving the bicycles. This was to promote, there's the bike to school programs. So during the summer, we work with DelDOT mainly in the Rehoboth area. By the way, if some of you may know, the most dangerous section of Coastal Highway is between 5 Points and Dewey, the Canal Bridge. Okay. That's where most accidents occur. And a lot of them is from visitors who aren't paying attention to what's going on, riding the wrong way, or the J1 students that come in where the bicycle is their transportation. The J1, the foreign students that come in to do work during the summer, DelDOT works to get them bicycles. They're donated. This becomes the transportation for the students from where they're living to where they work. And they're used to riding in countries where people notice cyclists and give them a lot of care, as opposed to, I hate to say it, got a lot of visitors around here who think cyclists should be off the road somewhere where they're never seen anywhere. But this year we set up 12 safety stops. This is working along with DelDOT. Some on Coastal Highway, some on the trails, some at one of the churches where the J1 students get free meal occasionally. And what we do is attach lights to the bicycles, front lights, back lights. And by the way, the lights on bicycles aren't necessarily so somebody can ride at night. They're so that we have flashing lights on the front and back so that you're seen when you're traveling on the highway. The flashing light is more noticeable than nothing at all. And it's flashing light's more noticeable than just a light that's on. So we really encourage people to ride with lights flashing on the front, white light, flashing on the back, a red light, and hopefully the drivers are going to notice that. Anyway, that's part of what we're doing. We, working again with DelDOT, put out this brochure. We just started getting these distributed last year, and part of it is to let people know about the new bicycle laws in Delaware, and part of it is to let visitors know where they can ride. I'm not going to go through all the details in here, but some of the people don't realize now that Delaware has Delaware yield. Bicyclists are allowed to treat stop signs as yield signs. That doesn't mean you can run a stop sign, but if you're on a road out in the country and there's no traffic around, you don't have to, by law, come to a complete stop before you can go. It also changed some things for drivers. Drivers can cross double yellow lines in order to pass cyclists. Prior to that, the law was you couldn't pass the cyclist just like a car. You couldn't cross the double yellow lines. So it's made some differences in that. By the way, cars aren't allowed to honk at cyclists unless there's some sort of imminent danger. So, yeah. Then there's just a few other things to make it a little bit easier for cycling. We have in our organization, we really emphasize safety. In fact, one of our officers on our board of directors is elected as a safety officer. They will go out and do safety presentations. They'll work if, something like Cape Henlopen State Park often has some events. They'll set up a table and distribute information and talk about bicycle safety. We do that at other events also when we have the opportunity. We have one officer that is designated as our advocacy director. And they work closely with the Delaware Bike Council, with the legislature, with any government organizations that are considering doing anything to regulate cycling or want help in suggestions on what they can do to make things better and safer for cyclists. And we ride. We enjoy riding. I will point out that most of our rides seem to be, because of this is safety reasons, we used to do rides mostly out of Rehoboth, starting about a block from Coastal Highway. And sometimes the rides even went on Coastal Highway. We don't do that anymore. Most of our rides now are centered around trails or inland. We start a lot of rides now in Milton and then head out Redden Forest, local roads, hardly any traffic. And if traffic, it's local traffic. These are Delaware people. They generally yield to bicycles. What we are, I hate to say it, but what we really worry about are people that have come in from other places that aren't kind of aware and maybe aren't as polite to cyclists as local people. We start some rides at Millsboro, out of Lowe's. Again, it's the same thing. Once we start heading west, we're on roads where people aren't using them as a shortcut to get to the beach. Mainly local people going home or coming from home, and they're very polite. We feel a lot safer on roads like that. And now there's the trail system, which is growing. The trails in Cape Henlopen, Gordon's Pond, Junction and Breakwater Trail, the Lewis-Georgetown Trail, there we don't have to worry about traffic at all. And by the way, I don't know if anybody's heard, the Lewis-Georgetown Trail right now is finished from Lewis to Harbison. We just got a grant from the federal government to finish that trail. So they'll be hopefully finishing it within a year or two, getting it done the rest of the way to Georgetown. I know there are some trails in this area, but if there's an area where somebody thinks, gee, we ought to have a trail here, and there's a possibility of putting it in along a canal or something like that, we would be glad to work with people to lobby, get in touch with the right people in order to start putting trails in other parts of the county. We're also a great promoter of not just the trails, if we can get a bike lane somewhere. Now, Coastal Highway through here, first of all, I've ridden it many times. Noticed today, a lot of people riding up and down both ways. Can't remember which organization, Rails to Trails, League of American Wheelmen, designated that section of Coastal Highway from Dewey south as one of the most scenic rides in the country. So, riding along the coast, going across the bridge, coming down, that's designated by one of those organizations. Sorry, I can't remember which one. It's one of the most scenic rides in the country. So, you have that resource right here. Let me just go to questions if anybody has any questions about the organization or cycling. I will point out, I have been cycling seriously since 1991. I've got a lot of miles in. I'm still trying to do it whenever I can.
Yeah. So John, again, thank you for being here and sharing your organization's background perspective. It's really been helpful. I love the idea that you've got different folks, like the advocacy group, the safety officer, and your willingness to help other communities as you try to grow this. What would, we were chatting about this before. If you could ask or share one or two things with us. Now, we're a little town of a square mile, right? So, but if you think about in a broader perspective, what would be the one or two things you would advise a group like ourselves, made up, representatives of the community, what we could do better or try to focus on? What would be?
Well, I'm looking at the signage for cyclists around here is very good.
Okay.
I coming into town or riding around town, I have no problem knowing where I should be if I'm a cyclist. Okay, things are I've got to hand it to you. Things are well marked. I don't have to guess. There are signs that tell cyclists, ride with traffic. You don't always see that. I see people all over the place that are riding against traffic. And somebody once said, well, that's what my parents told me to do. I said, well, my parents liked me. And they wanted me to stay alive, so they never told me to do that. But, you have to make the decision. I also I've done a little math lesson with riding against traffic. If you're riding at 10 miles an hour and the traffic's going 20 miles an hour, that's still slow, but you get a 30-mile-an-hour collision, not necessarily survivable.
Right.
If you're going 10 miles an hour and a car hits you from behind at 20, that's only a 10-mile-an-hour collision.
Right.
You're going to get scraped up, you're going to get hurt a little bit, you might break a few bones, but chances are you're going to limp away from it.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, John. One other thing, the other thing that this comes back from when I think I was chatting with your group, but somebody shared with me the idea that as a cyclist particularly, it's about being very thoughtful about your route in advance.
right.
So rather than just sort of go out and explore and end up someplace, there's a lot of value in really thinking about what's my route, how am I going to get there, what are the challenges I might have, is there a better way of getting around it? You were talking about that with some of the places you prefer, but that idea, the preparation, I thought was really helpful to plant the seed for.
We do a lot of route planning. We work with our most recent thing is we're working with Wheels for Meals for a charity ride that they did out of Hudson Fields. And we did the route planning, and on routes that have no shoulders but kind of heavy traffic, we will ask DelDOT to put signs in warning about cyclists. And the club itself has signs that say caution cyclists on roadway that we use in events when there's something like that. We try to avoid doing that when we're doing club rides. We know the roads pretty well around here. There's an organization called Bike and Beers which does rides all over the country, and they use us to do their route planning. When they're doing rides around here. They just did one about a month ago out of Milton. They've done them out of Big Oyster, out of Iron Hill. They do a couple in New Jersey they're out of breweries. They've started and ended breweries. Somehow these rides seem to be very popular. I will point out that our club has a ride every Friday that starts at either Revelation or Big Oyster or whatever. The new brewery, Bethany, up on whatever, has hosted some rides.
Cool.
Again, for some reason, people will go, start about 10 o'clock, ride for a couple hours, come back and have, I guess, just lunch. They might have a beer or something afterwards.
Non-alcoholic beer.
Huh?
Non-alcoholic beer.
Oh, of course, yeah. But Dogfish had, when we started rides in Milton, we were parking different places, but Dogfish Head now lets us use the back end of their parking lot, so we start out of there.
Great.
it may get them some business. Anyway, I've done route planning for, somebody says, emails the club and says, do you have any suggestions on where I could ride? I'll find out where they're staying, and I can quickly, using Ride with GPS, if anybody's ever heard of it, I can quickly do a route and send them a GPS or a PDF file of where to go to keep them safe.
Great. Thank you, John. Any questions from the committee?
John, thanks for coming. On your routes, how many people would you say generally ride? And when you're on these back roads, are you riding single file, two abreast? How do you handle people that go faster or slower than others, I guess?
Whenever we do post-ride, there is a road speed as part of it, a 12 to 14 mile an hour ride, an 18 to 20 mile an hour ride. We have some fast groups and some slow groups. We try to mix them up. I'll give you Wednesday, there were 2 rides that started at the same place, one fast and one kind of medium ride. And on other days of the week, there might also be a slower one. We have ride leaders that have to we actually have qualifications for ride leaders. They have to be able to plan a ride, and they have to be able to work with a group. The ride leader on the ride that I was on Wednesday, excellent. Somebody was going too fast. The front rider is not necessarily the ride leader. They're the person that's riding out front, and in some rides that rotates. The person was riding too fast and too long, and the ride leader goes up and says, in other words, he had control over what was going on. We have, at the beginning of every ride, the ride leader will cover where we're going and at what pace we're going. We ride single file. On roads, country roads where there's not a lot of traffic, people may pair up and talk and socialize. If we're riding on trails, it's all single file, and every one of the riders knows the etiquette. We never have a group bigger than 10. If we have a ride and we have a lot of people sign up, we will split that ride into smaller groups and start 5 or 10 minutes apart for each one. If you ever see us on a trail, Lewis, Georgetown, Junction, Breakwater, whatever, the front rider will say, passing on your left, 10 riders. The next to last rider may say one more, and the last rider will say last rider. Okay. We won't pass if it's on a blind curve. We'll slow down if there's something in front of us. We know that. We also try to, say good morning to people and things like that. There will also, the lead rider, if there's other cyclists ahead, will say rider up or cycle up or runner up. We don't know, maybe there's a winner, but runner up, walkers up, so that the people behind know what's going on. We also, one of the common things on trails is because they put these bollards into place, the front rider will say post. And by the way, that gets passed on down the line. Every other rider on there will say it. It doesn't matter if everybody says it. We want everybody to know that there's a post there. And that's just kind of, that's ride etiquette. You always warn people when you're passing. If I'm riding alone, I will say, passing on your left. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, it's just proper ride etiquette. So, and we train our riders in it. This is a card we have of ride leaders. I just happen to have one here. One is side is on safety, and then they're supposed to make sure that all the riders know that. The other side is the group riding etiquette. So the ride leaders have these. These are laminated, and usually everybody knows it already. I was going to say, in signing up, we're pretty well automated now. If somebody signs up for a ride, they do it online. With our website, we have an app, and the riders can download an app for iPhone, Android, or whatever, and use that app to sign up for the ride. One of the processes in signing up for the ride is we're talking about the ID thing. They have to agree to the waiver. They can click on it, read it. You know, they have to agree to abiding by our ride rules, which we have online. They also have to put in emergency contact and phone number every time they sign up for a ride. We've had somebody say, well, I've got this in my, it's in our database. Says, yeah, but what if it's your wife, but she's out of town and somebody else needs to be contacted? So every time we sign up for a ride, for safety reasons, we require them to put in the name of whoever the emergent contact is and the phone number. And by the way, the ride leader has access to that, to all of the information. And if something does happen, all they have to do is bring out their app. They have a special admin app, and find that rider and hit the button on their phone and make the emergency call.
Great.
So that's one of the things that we have. So, and they also check in riders using the app on the phone. So, by the way, if you ever want to visit our app and click around, it's sussexcyclist.org, and on the back of this, the QR code goes to that. There's also a QR code inside on places to ride. That goes to Del Dot's interactive ride map for the beach area.
Oh, great.
So,
John, just in the interest of time, is there anybody, and you're welcome, John, you're more than welcome to stay with us for the remainder of the meeting. Does anyone from the community have a quick question they'd like to share with John? Jen, please.
Really quickly,
We just need to hear you. Wait till you get the microphone so we can.
Thank you so much. Is it allowed for them, for your, well, it's kind of to you, is it allowed for them to have their website address and QR code or whatever on the town's website to link to Del Dots and your information and whatever? Because this is very well done. If this is a PDF that can be downloaded or somehow distributed, thanks. This is great. Thank you so much.
Jen, we'll look into it. I don't know exactly the answer. It sounds like a great idea, though, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann. I love your brochure. I was thinking, since this is such a great brochure and you're a big organization, is there any way that maybe twice a season, the summer season, we could put something in the Wave or something in the Coastal Point with part of this information or all this information, just so people are more aware? Because I read the Wave and the Coastal Point every week. It's just an idea.
Nothing there is copyrighted, so, and since you mentioned it, we're planning, we haven't printed these yet, but I'll mention this, familiar with door hangers? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is essentially the same information that's in that brochure, but as a hanger. We intend to get these printed, and what we're going to do is ask bike shops to hang them on the handlebar, particularly on rental bikes or bikes for sale, so that somebody coming to the area and renting a bike, one side is the rules and laws, the other side is where to cycle. So essentially that same information. This is our next project dealing with cycling safety around here.
Awesome. That's great. Fantastic. Okay. Let's go ahead. Come on, John, thank you so much. I appreciate your insight and guidance. Thank you.
And I'm going to stay around. My life used to be attending meetings. I miss it a little bit.
Yeah, you can't resist, right? That's great. Thank you again, John. So what we'd like to do is have reports from the town. I know our town manager is out sick today, but Mayor Hardiman, if you have a... Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Hinman. And thank you, John. That was very informative. And I hope we can disseminate some of your information even further. And welcome, Art. It's always good to see a new face and to have somebody else participate in the town and show so much interest. So thank you. And I just wanted to bring you up to date. I think, as you know, pedestrian and bicycle safety is a priority for the town and for town councils, not only this one, but many years prior and decades prior. We've had pedestrian and bicycle studies done for at least 2 decades and even longer. And the problem is getting worse as more people come here. We all know that. We have recent efforts when we were successful in having the speed limit lowered on Kent Avenue. We got together with the folks from Middlesex, Sea Colony, and South Bethany to see if we could get DelDOT to lower the speed limit on Route 1 to 30 miles an hour from Fred Hudson Road down to Logan Street in South Bethany, the very last street. We sent them resolutions from all 4 communities back in 2021. We finally heard from them in 2022. They met with us and they said that what they wanted was a traffic study that would support our request. And as you know, we had a traffic study done by the traffic group, and they did one not only on Route 1 in the areas that were designated, but we asked them at the same time if they could look at Route 26, because as we all know, that is a huge problem, and it has many more people crossing from one side to the other without the benefit of any light or anything else. As you know, they turned us down for a rectangular rapid flashing beacon over there, but they did go and reline the keys and everything to see, but we still think that we need something more on that street. We finally heard back from DelDOT within the past 2 weeks, and basically they did not agree with the traffic study, the support. They said they could not support lowering the speed limit to 30 miles an hour on Route 1. So what we're going to do is the 4 communities are going to get together and to see what other options we have and see if we can move forward on that. They did, however, agree that the speed limit could be lowered on Route 26. So they did say that. They agreed with the data that had been submitted for that, but they also asked if we would get together with Ocean View and Millville and see if they would agree to extend the speed limit out there to 30 miles an hour. So we're going to do that in the next couple of weeks, and I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. We will sit down with Millville and Ocean View because we do think it's a good idea to have it. DelDOT doesn't like to do it piecemeal, and they don't like to have one community and then have, a higher speed limit in the next community. So we will be getting together with them. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that.
Great.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Hardeman, for your efforts. Sir, could just get you the mic so people that aren't here can hear you, sir?
Thank you. I see.
Say your name and...
My name is Kirsch.
Okay.
I see Senator Hocker is very much involved in Fred Hudson, because I travel Fred Hudson
Right.
quite a bit. He had the double lines recently done. They're doing another project, I guess, in Ocean View of expanding the sidewalks and things like that, because it's very dangerous if you're coming across the bridge before you get to the bike lane that gets you onto one South. Is he involved in any of this stuff, the Senator? Because he seems to do a lot by his grocery store in that area.
Yeah, we will, of course, talk to him and also Representative Gray. But you may also be aware that the people in North Bethany involve Representative Gray in trying to get DelDOT to lower the speed limit there, and they've been unsuccessful to date in doing that. But we will involve everyone we can in trying to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I did hear from Seth Hammond, who's as the mayor referenced, is the sort of the leader for the North Bethany Coalition, which are all those communities north of Bethany up to the bridge. And they have a proposal to actually install the rapid fire crossing on Route 1 to get people across. That's going to be an interesting challenge, be honest with you, because of the speed limit there. They also want to get it reduced to 45. And I asked a question at one of their DelDOT's summer sessions, is there any place in the United States where you have a 55-mile-an-hour road with those beacons right? Because it seems inherently dangerous. You're trying to solve a problem, but you're creating something else. So there's a lot of work going on with that, sir. That I couldn't hear all your question, but yeah. I know, that's what they're working on. Oh, a bridge, okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you, sir, appreciate it. And thank you, Mayor Hardeman. I know Cliff's not here. Terry, anything just from a town management perspective, we okay? Okay. Okay. Sergeant Foley, from the police department view, please? Thank you.
I compiled some stats here since our last meeting, July 13th. In the town of Bethany, in our square mile, we've had 14 motor vehicle accidents. 3 of those have involved minor injuries. These are motor vehicles versus motor vehicles. 2 of these have been crosswalk related. Subsequently, they've both been right here at Route 1 and Central. One was southbound. The vehicle at fault struck a vehicle that was yielding to the pedestrian crosswalk with active pedestrians in the crosswalk and the lights fully flashing. Most recent, a nearly fatal accident we had last week. There was some guardian angels out there in the morning. 1:50 a.m., we were dispatched to the intersection of Route 1 and Central Boulevard here on the northbound lane. There were 7 J1 students from France crossing from the town park, walking eastbound across to the east side of town. Pickup truck yielded. You can actually see them on our town surveillance cameras. They activated the light beacons. They started to cross through the southbound lane of travel. They stopped. They saw a car coming from 1 and 26 at a very high rate of speed. The operator was subsequently arrested for DUI. She crashed into the pickup truck that was yielding for the J1 students who were active in the crosswalk and nearly killed 8 people, including the 7 pedestrians. She was arrested and charged with, we threw the book at her, to be perfectly honest with you, everything traffic related, alcohol related, she was charged. Our last checkpoint, I unfortunately could not make that. It was reported by our seasonal officers, 125 bike lights that we issued during the checkpoint. I'm not sure if that is in addition to OHS, for those that were there. It's an addition. I know OHS passed out 90. So Bethany Beach PD was 125. I'm assuming the numbers are a little bit higher because we're actively out there motioning people to come over in a welcoming way to talk to us, where Del Dot just kind of stays there and is recognized and they're seen. Our next bike checkpoint, our last one for the summer, is going to be next Thursday, August 10th. We're going to do the same spot, South Pennsylvania and Wellington Parkway. That's going to be from 8 to 11 in the morning. In the past month or so, Bethany Beach Police were allocated certain funds by the state of Delaware and grants from the Office of Highway Safety for pedestrian safety. What we do is pretty much, it's an open box. We can go out and educate, enforce, foot, bike, whatever it is that we want to do. We're kind of up to our own individual officer discretion to feel where you want to go. Usually what we do, as I mentioned before, is go into heavily populated areas. Maybe on the evening time would come around Garfield in Pennsylvania, or this intersection right here, or maybe 26 in Kent, and just educate pedestrians on how they could use the roadways and utilities that we provide them a little bit better. A few officers have took it upon themselves to stop mopeds and electric scooters. We've been doing this very often here recently. We actually made a social media post that kind of generated a lot of interest. If you follow our social media, a lot of the comments are people that want to voice their opinion, and it's kind of what everybody feels, if that makes sense. A lot of people make complaints and gripes in the comment section, which we obviously see and recognize, and we feed off that and run it and try to better, the public perception of what people are doing wrong. So we were stopping mopeds. The most common violation that we've seen was mopeds traveling in the bicycle lane, which is illegal, past stop traffic to get from their point A to point B as fast as they possibly can. It is probably one of the most reckless things that anybody could do, because they're going maybe 20, 25 miles per hour in a bike lane. In the event a car pulls out in front of them legally, making a left-hand turn or right-hand turn, they're going to cause an accident. So we've been pulling them off. There has been zero enforcement with that. It's been very educational with these violators. A lot of them just have mopeds tagged in the state of Delaware, and they don't really know the laws. They just kind of assume that they're bikes. So we have not been put in a position where enforcement has been an option. We are high on education rather than enforcement. I think that goes a little bit far with public perception. Also, the electric scooters, we've came into contact with many of these. We have noticed through our patrols that J1 students are the violators. They are being issued electric scooters that are registered to businesses, not in town. There's some businesses that employ J1 students with their stickers on the front post of the scooter that they allow the J1 students to use to go from point A to point B. Usually it's from their business to their home. I don't know why they don't provide them bikes, but this is a little bit faster option, which the J1 students are using a lot more because they're lazy. They don't want to ride bikes. They just stand there and pull a throttle, and then they go. So we've been, I'd say 95% of those violations are J1 students. So if you see them around town, it's the student population. Tonight, I'm going to be doing one of those pedestrian safety. Like I said, we've had some incidences in town with pedestrians and violators. And when the sun goes down, different people come outside. I'm going to be working tonight 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. I know I promised you guys I would let you come with me. Tonight would not be the night to do that, just because it can go down a different path when at nighttime there's not more, you do more enforcement than you do education, just because there's a lot of contributing factors with that. I will say on Monday, before my shift, probably around noontime, weather pending, if anybody wants to join me, I'm going to do another pedestrian safety enforcement. We can make it whatever we want. We can communicate via email throughout the weekend. We can pick an intersection. I can bring a tent and a couple chairs and kind of do what we do on bike checkpoints. If you want to preach and promote WAVE, we can certainly do that, and I'll do my educational spiel. I don't want to make it, I want to do during the daytime on Monday. So it's not going to be another bike safety checkpoint, because all that's allocated for the checkpoint on Thursday. But if you guys want to have some say in that, I will certainly entertain it. We can work together, and you can help me out and promote the WAVE at the same time. We can try to do that on Monday. I have to work all night, but I can come in early, like noontime, if you want to do that.
What day is this now?
On this Monday, it's 7th. That's all I have for the past month on behalf of the police department.
Great. Thank you, Sergeant Foley.
I was going to just say, there were 104 people that came to the bike safety checkpoint last week. Some people went home and brought back other bikes. In fact, families did. But out of that group, I saw 2 who were through riders, and one of them stopped because he had a tire problem and wanted some help with, what he should do with it and how he should address it. But Julie sent out an email yesterday having talked to Lauren at the Bethany Fenwick Chamber of Commerce, talking about our emphasis probably for the Ocean to Bay bike ride should be probably the fun ride on, I think it's Friday.
Right.
And I would agree with that. I think the through riders are pretty much attuned, but it's the fun ride where we get the biggest bang for the buck. And I really agree with her on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Again, thank you, Sergeant Foley. That was one of the things we've heard from a number of people about connecting, particularly with mopeds and scooters. I know you talked about enforcement, or education rather than enforcement. But I think that really sends a really strong message about the focus we're putting on in Bethany from a safety perspective. And that word gets out, when you do that with one person, the word gets passed. And So thank you for making those steps. That's great. Think what the traffic study, we're not going to cover. Future guest speakers, let's hold that. I know we're doing some work. Teresa and Faith are doing that, and I'm working with them on that. So we're actively looking at that. Let's move into the wave rollout efforts. Any thoughts? Just Carl, you shared a couple just from our or anyone on the team really perspective we have as we're now into August already. Hard to believe in terms of the engagement we're having with folks. Any feedback? I know. Well, let me share Tim's. Tim can't be here, but the one thing he shared I thought was really insightful. Tim Schweitzer, a member of our team, and he said, you know what? It's really, you're starting to see a change a little bit. People are getting used to the flashing lights, both from a driving perspective, from a pedestrian perspective. You're seeing improvement. You know, folks are becoming more aware of their roles, their responsibilities, and each other's, and also looking out for the potential blind spots or oversight. So I thought that was an insightful comment, because Tim's been very active about that and very passionate about it. But I'm sorry, Carl, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you have anything else? Oh, okay. Art,
actually,
please.
I would agree with Tim. I cross Route 1 all the time, coming into town at least probably once a day, and I can definitely tell that there's a change. I mean, certainly in the off-season, most people are aware of it, and they're great about stopping when there's, somebody trying to cross the highway.
Right.
But I've noticed in the last, this summer, it's definitely, it's better. People are much more aware of the pedestrians and are stopping for them, and I certainly appreciate it.
Right.
So I think the campaign is certainly working.
Good. Good. Anyone else? Okay. All right, let's, I just wanted to cover briefly our summary of our activities to date. As Sergeant Foley mentioned, our next one up is Thursday for the checkpoints. Again, great opportunity to engage with people. And then we have a couple others laid out further for the rest of the year that we can certainly add to. Is there anything else that's not up there just from a team perspective that we haven't captured yet?
Are we doing any of the pedestrian things where we're stopping at one of the corners and I think
Well, no, that's a great question. That was something actually was very, I had a lot of energy for. We've sort of deferred that a little bit so far, and we're trying to partner up with Sergeant Foley and the police department, where they're doing the sort of the one-on-one kind of things, and like you're talking about for Monday. Sure. So we're trying to do those more. Personally, I'm talking to a lot of people all the time, but I'm not standing out in the corner necessarily waiting for them to come to me. It's more in the process. So that might be something we want to consider, particularly as we think about next year and reflect back on this year. So what Carl's referring to is literally maybe having a couple of us maybe standing on the intersection of Central and 1, and as people are crossing, literally helping remind them, right, the right way to cross, maybe hand out a T-shirt as a thank you to one of the kids or something, that kind of involvement and engagement to really make it personal and make it very connected around people's behaviors, what they're doing well, and maybe some things they could do differently. So we'll we'll add to this if we need to, and as Carl mentioned before, well, again, give a shout out to Julie, by reaching out to the Lauren Beaver with the Ocean to Bike Bay, and that whole idea that we're really going to be part and parcel with that next year. I guess it's their 35th anniversary, so it's a big deal. So we'll have a table and be able to really reach out. So we've already got something on the agenda for next year, so that's exciting. So, all right, so what I'm going to do just to sort of wrap up is some of the idea review of the future efforts. So this was something we started to brainstorm last week. We started with the idea of these are just, this is brainstorming, there's no good ideas, there's no bad ideas, they're just ideas, and to sort of think about whether it's what can we have impact, new initiatives, maybe doing some kind of data analysis, or additional infrastructure projects. So that was sort of what we started with, and what we came up with, this is sort of the list, almost verbatim, and Terry, thank you again for capturing all those for us. But these are some of the ideas that were surfaced at our meeting on the 13th of July. So there's some that are about more physical kind of things, lighting or lights, crosswalks. Others are about T-shirts, how to engage with folks in different ways. This J1 student core team was sort of a cool idea, I thought. Some bike racks at Town Hall, vision for electric class transportation, and the like. So there's some really great ideas there, and I don't want to, don't want to try to prioritize those right now. That is what we're really thinking about for our next meeting. We'll have some time for that. But is there anything else that, from a committee perspective, then we'll open it up to the participants that are here, want to add to that list? Again, no right, wrong ideas. These are just helping formulate our next steps. So, go ahead, Diane, please.
Okay, I'm on one every morning, running one way. And there's still quite a few people that are walking in the wrong direction.
Okay.
And I don't know how we can kindly tell them. I mean, Rosemary did have the T-shirt on that one day that she did it. I don't know if there's something else that we can do.
Okay.
Because I mean, and even on 26, it's still occurring.
Okay.
It might not be in town as much, but it's definitely occurring on 1 and 26.
Okay. Good.
And this is for pedestrians.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Great.
No, I think that's a great point. And again, I think it's, Bethany's done a wonderful job of making sure the shoulders have those indicators about which way to go. It's painted in there, that's great. But I noticed that when I get beyond Bethany, a lot of other communities in this area don't have that. Like if you go down to Fenwick, or if you go up north towards the bridge, and if, again, maybe as a larger, community, we can kind of get together and have more consistency in the delivery of that message. I think that would help, because again, a lot of people, if they start out in an area where they don't have that indication, they may just assume that they're doing things correctly, and then they carry it into Bethany and they may not even notice. But if there's that consistent message all the way from, the state line in Fenwick all the way up to at least the bridge, if not to Dewey, I think that would probably help in terms of delivering the message, in terms of getting results.
And I think also, I think the flashing lights help, but I think people just don't want to cross over for 2 blocks, and then they're going to have to cross back. But it only takes 1 second for someone to hit you.
No, exactly. No, I biked a lot of times in the morning. I know exactly what you're seeing, and it is a concern. And I'm just trying to be aware.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I have to move over to the wrong side to deal with something, I will. But it does get a little dicey. You're right.
Yep. And Art, that was one of the things I had, but it really builds off your comment, which builds off of Diane's, is this idea of, and this came up, one of our neighbors down the street, Edie, and I forget her last name, she's on the town council for South Bethany, and one of her colleagues were here. And one of the things we talked about at that meeting was, I think she was one of our first or second guests, I think, was this idea of maybe coming together as a group, as a community, a group of communities. And I was almost going to think about, my idea to add to this was maybe try to time something in maybe the March timeframe of next year, where we come together as all these communities together and brainstorm and think about the upcoming season, what we can do. But Art, it's that idea of not thinking about it just from a Bethany perspective, but thinking about it from a continuous perspective, from, maybe the bridge down kind of thing, right? And what we can learn, what we can focus on, and any ideas to build on that. But it's really building on that sense of shared community, if you will, rather than just our, again, a little square mile, right? It's the bigger view.
Exactly.
So, the other thing I wanted to add to the list is this, and I was doing some research on the National Safety Council, Department of Transportation, but it's just called a walkability checklist, and I'll share this with you all. But it's something that the idea is, more importantly, is, we're looking at this from the perspective and trying to get input, but this actually, we can ask folks, and we could actually do this electronically, is get people's input, right? How safe, as if you're a guest here, do you think walking in Bethany is. And it breaks it down into some categories of, crossing the streets, how do drivers behave, do people follow the safety rules, was your walk pleasant, right? Just some generic kind of questions people can rate, which I think might give us some really valuable input for us to use for what we're trying to focus on going forward. So it's that outward sort of customer-centric perspective or guest perspective. So I want to just throw that out as an idea, and this is just an example, but it could be, there's a lot of different ways of doing that. But please. Yeah.
I think that's been mentioned in the past. I think the best way to go about that for this group is to, the bike safety checkpoint, as you guys know, you've been there. While we put on the bike lights, I usually answer questions or diffuse problems that people have. I think the best thing that this committee could do at those bike checkpoints is to exactly do that and just say, what can we do? What do you like and what do you not like about the town of Bethany Beach pedestrian traffic roadways? When I do the pedestrian safety patrols, that's another thing that we can do at that tent. I can educate them on what they're doing wrong, and then you can say, how could we make this better for you? How could you understand this if you're from Maryland or Pennsylvania? What can this town do to make it safer and more aware for you to follow the laws? That would be a great thing to do at these events.
Actually, that would be great, because a lot of times we're standing around, someone else is putting the lights on. We could be talking about that. Good. Asking those questions.
Good. Awesome.
That's a great point.
Yeah, thank you. Let me, if you could, ma'am, just please, just to the microphone. We'll get one. We're going to get you one, I think, or you can, or yeah. Thank you.
Sure. It's just a problem I've observed and I've experienced. It might be a good thing to address on this list. When a driver is stopping before they turn right on red or taking a yield right turn, they generally don't look right for cyclists and pedestrians. They only look left. And I've seen posted signs, the little yellow signs, there's one outside of Salt Pond community, that says, look both ways for cyclists and pedestrians. And that might be handy. I mean, I've had the bad experience just right here where you'd think everybody would be conscious of four-way pedestrian traffic, and I haven't seen it enforced. So that might be a help too.
Great. I'm going to give a shout out to my colleague sitting right next to me. She sent me a picture of one of those about a couple months ago about that as an idea, and I know I forwarded it on, but I'm not quite sure what came out of it. But that's a great one, yeah. Particularly here, right? Because there's so much activity, people doing the right thing and people doing the wrong thing, and you got to assume people are going to come from any direction, right? To avoid that. So it's that awareness. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Actually, I think it's also on what John has brought to on the committee. Look left, look right, then look left again.
Yeah. Anybody else? Sure, please. If you. Thank you, Jen.
While thinking about all this, it sounds like an emphasis, because the WAVE is doing great, the program, but to call it defensive walking, defensive driving, defensive cycling, so that you're on that kind of anticipation mode, not entitlement of offensive. I got to get here. So to change that mindset is a really tough thing, but it sounds like that's kind of at the core too, that we need to be more defensive in our looking and our awareness.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, and that's, again, if you think about what we're really trying to do with WAVE, right? It's not just follow these rules, but it's the whole idea is to be very open-minded, right? Watch, assess everything, right? Verify before we go, verify everything, and then ultimately try to put that into practice in a way that gets people across the street. So, yeah. Please.
Yes, Bill Bergfeld, 414 Gibson. I do have an infrastructure suggestion that might be added to that list, especially on the south side of 26. The sidewalks could be expanded to 6 feet by just filling in the grass and moving the speed limit signs. They actually can put them right in the top of the curb. They drill into the curb and put the sign there, so that nobody hits the sign. You could possibly do it on the north side of 26 as well, but people have to be aware of the posts, the telephone posts that are on that side. but getting additional space there, because we walk a lot of times, and Ann and I are very good about single filing when people are coming towards us, either riding a bike or if they're walking or if they're running. But we see a lot of people that once we do that, they step off onto the bike path. And they may be running or walking, and it's just not, it's not necessary. If we have the infrastructure in place, you take that whole risk away from people. And I also, just a personal comment, the people that run on the asphalt instead of on the concrete, they think they're saving their knees. Your knees don't know the difference between asphalt and concrete when you're running. They will know the difference when you're running in grass. But the people, I've seen people running in the bike path and on the asphalt thinking that they're saving their knees from not running on the sidewalk. So if we give them more sidewalk, and if he's, you know, there's no sense, and I don't know where you go to talk to the runners about that, but it just seems that we can, for not a lot of money, we can put concrete in that space and widen the sidewalks, which gives us a bigger, better path coming in on 26, which is where a lot of the people come from.
Thank you, Bill. You know, one thing you reminded me too, because you and Ann shared with us at the beginning of the year, actually, was a couple pages of ideas. I'm going to go back and pull that out and add that to our, make sure we have all those things, because there was a number of different things, both infrastructure, but there are also some sort of longer-term visions of how we move people, right? And that was really very, very insightful. So, Rosemary, please.
I just had one thought. Whoever said that people tend to walk on the side that's most convenient, I think that's absolutely right. Like, for example, when I walk on Pennsylvania, all the people coming from Sea Colony are walking toward me because it's inconvenient for them to cross the street and walk on the other side, on the west side, than it is to walk on the east side. But I also notice at the stop signs, there are signs that say pedestrians walk facing traffic and bicycles with traffic. However, they're on the side. First of all, they're small print. And the second thing is they're on the side of the person who is walking or biking correctly. And I think it might be better if they're larger and put on the side of the person who's biking or walking incorrectly, larger print, just as a reminder.
To kind of piggyback on that, I think when you look north on Pennsylvania Avenue, there's a sidewalk all the way down. On the south side, there isn't. And so people coming from the south, I think they're a little bit confused in that if you turn onto Cedarwood, there's a bike path and a pedestrian path. And then when you get onto Atlantic, you got the same thing. But if you continue on down Pennsylvania Avenue, there's only the bike path. And if you're a cyclist, you've got to always swing out into traffic to get around them because they're walking with.
Right.
So it's just, you know, unless we can put a sidewalk in south of Garfield Parkway all the way to Cedarwood, you know, signage can help, but I don't know if it's going to solve the problem.
Well, actually, that whole thing is being looked at, just how to redo South Pennsylvania Avenue. One way, if you did it the same way you did South Atlantic, you'd be taking down all the trees, unfortunately, and we don't want to do that. So we're trying to look at other options to make it safe for pedestrians and bicyclists to go. But you're absolutely right, I think, Carl.
Anyone else from the community? Please, sir. Again, if you could just go to the, thank you.
This is for Sergeant Foley. You talked about the surveillance cameras out here on the left-hand turn on Garfield. The other day I was riding. I do 11 to 22 miles a day, a circular route around here. And the other day I had 6 cars went through that red light. Now, is there any way that that can be enforced? I mean, this is every day. You'll see 2 or 3, but the other day was 6 cars taking a left-hand turn in the red light.
Are you talking about right here in the northbound lane, turn left on 26? Yeah. The biggest problem we have with that, and if you see a police car anywhere lurking in this intersection, It's during the 9, 10, and 11 o'clock. I'm giving away my secret here. A lot of people do exactly what you do, and it's one follow the other. And why did you stop me when you could have stopped the other 5? That's what they say when you pull them over. Right, you can only get one. If our radio and a partner's available and they're sitting, westbound on 26, they can certainly pull out and get the other one. So we could get 2. But it does happen. We do it all the time. To be honest with you, I'm going to take you along for a ride with me here. I'll sit right here at the town park and write somebody for failing to yield to a pedestrian or improper U-turn. I'll pull them over right then. By the time I give the ticket and get back in my car, my rear lights are still on, and I'm watching people do exactly what you say. And all I do is go around and take 4 right-hand turns, and I can write ticket after ticket. That's really all I can do. You guys probably see us all the time by our house, right? That's exactly what we do. You can... Yep. I think that's been addressed before. I think there was a red light camera option
cameras, yeah.
mentioned. I don't know if Del Dot, I don't know if we meet the criteria for that. I believe we don't. We are aware of that. The biggest time you see is during rental transition times, 9, 10, 11, and 12, when people are mass exiting. We are out there. We do see that. We can't stop everybody, but that is one of the biggest tickets besides speed that we write. Yep. 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 We see it, we do enforce that. There's no education, we enforce that.
Yeah, camera. Get a lot of money.
So, again, in deference to everyone's time, thank you for your input. The last thing I'd like to do is talk about our, I don't know if I have that on this chart or not. I think it's on the previous one. The next meeting date, will be sort of following our agenda, but a lot of it will be about really sort of having an opportunity to review the effort over the last 9 months of the year, when we really started trying to focus on the wave rollout at the beginning of the year, some feedback, but also then trying to take that input plus the additional things we've added and trying to organize it a little bit and help us prioritize a little bit. So what I'd offer up is like early September work for, if I were to throw out a date after the meeting. It just seems like there's so many other things going on with family and over the next couple months that I'd like to get us into early September, after Labor Day maybe.
That's fine with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
Earlier is better.
Okay,
I'm
how
tired
about,
of waiting.
I'll do this, I'll send a note out with some potential dates, since a number of our colleagues aren't here, and see if it'll work, but maybe that first week in September, okay? And we'll do a Thursday this time rather than a Friday, and see if it works. All right, and then we can have that dialogue offline, and then we'll get it posted. So, again, I want to thank everyone for their time, their participation from the community was here. This is really valuable. I mean, we are here representing you all, really. So this is really valuable to us. Again, we ask you to spread the message. And please use us as a sounding board, and we'll continue to try to move forward. Okay? So again, thank you, and we'll get a date out probably the first week in September, and we'll communicate that once we can coordinate a little bit with on our team. Okay? So do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay?
Yes.
Sounds good. And we don't have a quorum, so I can't have a vote, so
Okay.
we adjourned.
Election.
Thanks, everybody.